This what it did to my charger.
Hey, Trey.
Hey, Mr. Haddon.
How you doing?
Fine.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Mike.
I think I got it. You don't want to talk. Yeah, whoever you want to see, just hit. Let's go. All right.
Welcome, guys. I appreciate your patience when we get settled in here. We got one or two more that need to join us, and I'm giving them a few minutes of grace. Jerry Beth, you with me? Can you hear me okay? All right. We're a couple minutes past 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. All right. Well, we got one that's not going to join us tonight, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Pastor Jones, but it's always good to have a council member that's a pastor too. Would you be okay opening us up with an invocation, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You ready?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Thank you.
All right, let us bow. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come at this time with our heads bowed. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for the wonderful blessings you have restored upon us. Thank you, Father, for the gift of life and a reasonable portion of health and strength. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for the way you've given us to be able to read and comprehend what we read and have a proper understanding. And may we as council members, oh Heavenly Father, do the best we can for our city and our people of the city. In God's name we give thanks. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. Welcome to City Council again via Zoom. Really hoping to be in our new courtroom, but maybe next month. If not, then the month after, and then the month after that. We'll play this out by ear together. So I'm going to turn it over to Jerry Beth. So clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Mayor,
Here.
Mr. Philip Powell,
Here.
Miss Stewart,
Here.
Mr. Cordell,
Here.
Mrs. Bridges,
Here.
Mrs. Elmore,
Here.
Mr. Biles,
Here.
Mr. Jones,
Here.
Mr. Hatton, I know he is. I know he's here. I've seen him. Mr. Florence,
Here.
Mr. Butler.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
All right. Thank you, Jerry Beth. I appreciate it. First on the agenda is the approval of the May 11th regular meeting minutes. The link was made available into last week, Thursday evening, for all the city council members. I want to make sure all the council members have had enough time to review the packet. If so, then I'll take a motion to approve the minutes for May the 11th.
Motion made.
That was second. Motion made by Coy Butler and seconded by Suzette Elmore. All in favor, say aye.
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 And don't forget to unmute. Any opposition to the meeting minutes? Motion passes. All right. First up is public comments, and I'm going to let Miss Leanne Poole go first for us. I invited her to speak briefly about recycling options that we have here in our city, and something that not a lot of folks are aware of. And we've entertained conversations about our waste management contract, and the recycling piece to all this has come up. And so I've invited Ms. Poole to join us tonight. Ms. Poole, thank you very much. And the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me join. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, good deal. I work for Central Arkansas Planning and Development District, and the Solid Waste District falls underneath that umbrella. But what we have for Lone Oak, we have several counties that we take care of, Lone Oak, Monroe, and Prairie counties. But for Lone Oak, we actually have our materials recovery facility processing plant in Lone Oak, which is out at 975 Frontage Road, out past Perry's. And it's open to the public for recycling Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 5:30, and Wednesday, Friday, and the first Saturday of each month, 9 to 2. So in that, we collect plastic bottles, soda, number 1s and 2s. I can explain that more. aluminum cans and steel cans, all kinds of paper, newspaper, office paper, even magazines. Cardboard is probably our largest commodity. And if you go out to the recycling center, you can take your e-waste. That does not include, unfortunately, televisions. But we can take computers and copiers and fax machines and DVD players and all of those things. If you're not sure, you can call me and I can let you know. But we just simply can't take televisions because they charge us for those things, and we're not charging the public to use our facilities. And you may have noticed that we had a drop-off container in front of our office for a short time during when we had to be closed for COVID-19. And we had to put it back where it actually belonged. But you guys can actually go out to that recycling center and the guys will unload it for you. So that's what we have in Lone Oak. You have any questions?
Thanks for letting us know. I didn't know about some of that, a lot of it.
Well, we have a flyer that we put out in the water bills when the program first opened, and I've talked to the mayor about that, and we can do that again to let the public know more of what's going on and where to take it.
Could you repeat when it's open again, please?
I sure can. Monday we're closed. Tuesday and Thursday we're open from 9 until 5:30, and Wednesday, Friday, and the first Saturday of each month, 9 till 2.
Thank you.
Ms. Poole, I got a quick question for you. Recycling is something that's kind of been on the minds of a lot of folks in our community. I know it was something that was spoken. It was a concern that was addressed a year and a half ago when I brought this up in a campaign door to door. And I think it's something that a lot of the council will probably entertain and support. Can you just give us just briefly, in Leanne's perspective, the temperament of the recycling industry, how expensive it is, and why it may not be as simple as it sounds to manage?
Well, I can tell you that the very month that we opened our recycling processing center, the big one, the whole bottom fell out of the market. And so even though I continue to collect paper and plastics, I have yet to be paid for those items, but we will continue to take them. Cardboard, for instance, went from $150 a ton to $20. So we're struggling. We are open. As a matter of fact, the mayor sits on our board of directors, the solid waste district, and we will continue. And the price of cardboard's coming up, and I have a promise of a payment on my other commodities. But know that it is not part of your utility cost. I have that in the flyer that we send out. This is strictly for the district, and we do receive grant funds. Those grant funds continue to be cut. We also operate using host fees from our landfill over in Hazen. And so people may think that you can get rich recycling, but it's quite expensive actually. And we have one city in our district that has curbside, and that's Cabot, and that was put into operation many years ago. And what I caution, if the city does decide to go with a curbside, make sure you know where your recyclings are, where it's going. Where is it being processed? If you remember, not too many years ago in Northwest Arkansas, a city found out, they did not know that their recycling was going to the landfill. So be cautious if that's what you want to do. I can tell you, we have reports. We have to report to Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality how much recycling we take in and where it's shipped to. So we have that information. And so anybody that's actually recycling should have it.
Ms. Poole, I really appreciate you joining us tonight. Thank you for elaborating on that real briefly, and feel free to hang out with us or enjoy the rest of your night alone. So
I appreciate you guys. I think I'm gonna sign.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
All right, guys, next on the agenda is Mr. Matt Bowles. And I don't know if Josh Kinder joined us or not. I don't know that I can see him in in the room. But Matt's here to speak with us about some perspective and concerns over at the Lone Oak Depot. So Matt, sir, the floor is yours.
Sure, would just like to let you guys know that Josh couldn't be with us tonight. His mother's sick, and he's tending to that right now. If everybody would please keep Josh and his family in your prayers, we'd appreciate things. One thing is that Josh and myself and Hannah and others have seen the quote or the proposal that come out from Revival Architecture Firm. I think they're coming next Thursday to do a walkthrough with us and look at some things. One thing that I had noticed and circled was that under section B, it says architectural services excluded, hazardous materials consulting such as discovery of lead-based paint, asbestos, or mold. And our main concern right now from the chamber is a mold situation due to ventilation in the building and in the old substructure basement that's underneath. We have concern for Hannah or any other director that may be working for the chamber at some point, that the breathing conditions, the spores in the air and all of that, and also our renters coming in and out. Our revenue is down due to COVID. We're going to try to start renting and letting groups utilize that following the guidelines that have been provided so that we can produce revenue again for the chamber. But our concern is the mold and things, for working conditions and people coming in and out of the chamber. We wanted to call that to the attention of the council. And by looking at what Revival had said, we were just as a chamber concerned, who are we going to get to come in and fix the problems if Revival can't fix them? I've found.
Hey, Matt, this is Ryan.
Yes, sir.
I'll give you a little perspective on that. And it's the reason why an architect doesn't do that is because of the way their liability insurance works. You have to have and the term inspection is a legal term, but those services are performed by an environmental specialist. So it'd be much like what we did at Dr. Holmes' office, put out some bids for environmental remediation, or first you do a survey and then you do the remediation. So I was part of the team that had to select the architect, and they are aware of the problem and will be looking for visual signs of that. It's just on the owner's, it's the owner's responsibility to hire the survey for hazardous materials in the building. So that will be done. It's just specifically not done by the architect that was hired. It'll be done by an environmental specialist. That was one of the early things that was brought to our attention. So I'm 100% in agreement with you. That has to be addressed. Since the city is the landlord, we have to do that for the public safety and particularly the safety of our chamber employees and members. But the reason why it's an exclusion in the contract is because an architect doesn't do that, isn't qualified, but they can visually observe and then give you as the owner or give the city as the owner the guidance to get your third party survey and then remediation done. So if that's helpful guidance, let me know, or I can answer some more questions about that contract exclusion.
Thanks, Ryan. That clears a lot up. So basically that tells me, and I can go back to our board at the chamber, that this is part of the process and that it'll be another group once this study is done. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clarifying. One thing we just wanted to bring up from the chamber also is, I know in conversations with some of you guys at different points, we had talked about the ultraviolet maybe system, HVAC system that may have been installed in City Hall and possibly at the community center. If that was something that we could look at, that would be helpful inside the chamber as well. If anyone wanted to speak to that, have one other question. Right now, we were looking at trying to get some circulation through the building. We also worry about fire code, and this may be a question for Justin, but right now a lot of the windows are bolted shut. They have screws through them or they're bolted. And that was just when we were looking back, and I know that Josh had asked Ginger to kind of look at, are, you know, liability waiver and things that we would provide for people that are looking into renting the chamber. You know, that was just concerning to us. We're looking for guidance maybe from the mayor or the council on those two things. One, the windows, you know, being bolted shut, and that's how we should proceed. And also whether we should look into getting the ultraviolet HVAC system that's been installed in some other city properties.
Man, I don't have a problem entertaining the conversation. I've actually got the little pamphlet right here in front of me. It's been sitting on my desk. We purchased Remy Halo system, and essentially it does go inside your HVAC, and it uses ultraviolet light to kill a certain percentage of germs and you know, pollutants and stuff that float in the air. Our goal was to make a quick decision back in March, not knowing how this COVID was going to play out, if we were going to continue using the city facilities and being in close proximity, 6 feet or whatever, within each other's personal spaces, that we would be using that as kind of a defensive preventative measure against COVID. And I think it would likely make sense to consider the depot as a place to put this as well. But I don't know that that's an answer I can give you tonight. But I think it's something that we can discuss before next city council.
Thank you. And could maybe, I don't know if Justin, if you would like to speak to the windows at this time, or maybe we could schedule a meeting to have you come by and take a look at the windows and get your opinion on that. But those were the things that we wanted to bring to the table tonight for the council and the mayor and you guys to mull over.
I'll be happy to come by at whatever point and address those situations.
Okay.
You guys have each other's contact information, I presume. So I'm just gonna let you guys manage that outside of the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Mayor, council, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Matt, thank you. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Matt.
you, man.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, guys. Moving to the executive board reports. Miss Anna McClung, ma'am. This month's 2022 report is, floor is yours, ma'am.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
All right, great. So on June 4th, the executive committee met via a Zoom call and to get updates from the various teams. On June 10th, there was a walk audit, which I will talk more about at the end of this report. I'm going to give that in lieu of Michael Jones, who was not able to be here tonight. And just to give you an update, the beautification and recreation team has started the Yard of the Month award program. And although we were a little bit delayed this year getting started, so we're going to have our first award on this coming weekend, June 20th. And of course, this is to go to the best looking yards in each of the 4 different quadrants of the city. So we're excited about starting that program again and acknowledging those that put extra effort into making our city beautiful. You may remember last year we hosted the Wampu bike event, and we were looking forward to doing so again in July of this year. However, they have decided due to the COVID situation that will be canceled. But the group has made it clear that they're very interested in coming back to Lone Oak next year and look forward to working with us. Okay, with that, Mayor, I'd like to go to the June 10th walk audit update. And so this occurred in downtown Lone Oak on June 10th. It was made possible by a grant to Lone Oak 2022 by our partners at UCA and UAMS. And it was facilitated from UAMS and Craft & Tull, a civil engineering firm from Conway. And the purpose of the walk audit was to provide an assessment of the current downtown pedestrian infrastructure with the goal to develop a master pedestrian plan. There were 13 participants from Lone Oak that were present, and this included representatives from the City Council, Chamber of Commerce, the Planning and Zoning Commission, the high school, and other community organizations in our town. So the route encompassed much of the main thoroughfares going around downtown. And the mayor has a map of that up there. And so they took an assessment of various aspects of this walking area. Some of the things that they noted were that there's a lack of handicap accessibility on some of the sidewalks. And they suggested repainting the lines to denote parking spaces and loading and unloading zones and parking areas. And also to consider putting ramps in front of businesses rather than on the corner at the end of the sidewalks. They also noticed that there was a lack of crosswalk lines and pedestrian crossing signals at Center Street. This would be something that with further discussion, they decided that would probably need to involve the Arkansas Department of Transportation to take care of that. They also looked at options for vacant lots, like at the one that's next to Pizza Pro, and discussed how this could be an ideal location for what they call a multi-use pocket park. For example, where we would host movie nights or music nights, or have some other small community gathering events. They also looked at our alleyways and that these could be possible areas for gatherings for patrons and, excuse me, and the general public. Excuse me. They looked at wayfinding signage and noticed that some of the downtown signs were pretty worn or in need of replacement, and that the pedestrian signals at the center of, at the intersection of Center and Highway kind of need some repair. In looking at the lighting, this was primarily being directed at the road rather than lighting on the streets. And that would be something to look at improving, and also would likely include Department of Transportation. They also looked at that cut through area between the depot going towards the flagpoles. And as we look at trying to have the railroad corridor trail more connected with a larger system, this could be perceived as a barrier for pedestrian traffic. And so to possibly look at either putting up decorative bollards in certain time points, or in some way to be able to close that off if we were to have an event which would want to really encourage people to move along that trail system. So the folks at Craft and Toll will be compiling all this information that they gathered, and will be presenting or preparing a comprehensive report, and that will serve as the basis for drafting a future plan. So with that, I'll close and appreciate your attention tonight.
Thank you, Anna. I really appreciate that. Are there any questions about the walk audit? I appreciate everybody that had the time to participate. All right. Next up, Mr. Gene Eagle with our monthly economic development report. Gene, sir, the floor is yours.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just three things. We did receive one request for information, but after looking at it, it was way too large for our electrical capacity. And so we passed on that. The second thing is we've looked at the goal for housing starts and counting the housing starts for this last year. We're on track. We actually forecasted to have 5 single-family housing starts, and we've achieved that goal. And in addition, we had some multifamily, 2 duplexes. This was basically a review of the reports that came from the city. But we'll be checking and reviewing that every year. The third thing is the Lone Oak Economic Acceleration and Development Corporation had a special meeting on June 2nd where we expanded membership. We also addressed our outdated governance documents and adopted an amended and restated set of bylaws, and set tomorrow, June 16th, is the date for our annual meeting. At this date, we will elect officers and directors. And we're making an intentional and deliberate attempt to expand participation. So we've added 2 new board of directors seats that we'll be voting on. And with that, I'll close. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Okay, Gene, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. All right, moving on. Mr. Roy Don, sir. Parks and Rec.
Good evening. In your packets, we have, there's a couple of, we should have 3 different quotes in there. 2 for the ballpark, 1 for the railing on the east side of the concession stand. It's for $3,311, and that's with tax included. And that's on the east side of the new concession stand. I'd like to try to get that done if we could, while we're not playing out here.
Don, can you explain real quick for maybe some of those who haven't been out there to see why we need handrails right there?
Well, we had to build up the pad so high that right there, and that's going on the side where the restrooms are. If a person's in a wheelchair or something, people not paying attention, they could go off the side, and it's about a 3-foot drop down through there. And then all the way down that east side, it's at least an 8-inch drop from concrete down to the ground everywhere down through there. It just make it more safe for the handicap right through there with that rail system.
Okay. I'll take a motion to
move that we proceed. This is Cordell with the handrails for the price listed here. $33.11. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
I second.
Motion is made by Matt Cordell, seconded by Coy Butler. Is there any discussion on it? Any questions? Take it to a vote then. Don't forget to unmute. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Second quote you got in there is cages around the PTAC units of the restroom. What these are is big air conditioner heaters that stick out from the wall. It goes down to the ground. And there's a lot of, when you're dealing with the kids and everything out here, there's a lot of stuff that's easy to hit with bats and stuff that would tear these very expensive PTAC units up. So we'd like to build a steel cage around them, and also got electrical runs out there. There's 2 different prices in there. You'll see just for the cages is $3,500. That's without tax. Or you can have them powder coated for an extra $800, be $4,300 without tax. Total of all, if you do powder coated, it'd be $4,751.50. Tax included. Without powder coated, it'd be $860.
So Roy Don, let me ask you, or what are you recommending, the power coated or non-power coated?
The powder coated will make the metal last a lot longer because there is a lot of moisture and everything coming around that, and that takes care of maybe wouldn't have to do this again.
Okay.
I make a motion that we get the enclosure with the powder coating for the whatever that figure was.
That's $47.51.50.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made by Coy Butler and seconded by Raymond Hatton. Any discussion or questions for Mr. Roy Don on this purchase?
Powder coat will last a long time.
All right. If there's no questions, we'll take it to a vote. Don't forget to unmute. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? No opposed? Motion passes. All right, Mr. Roy Don, what else you got?
Well, just like to invite everybody. I'll give you a tour of the concession stand. It's 99% complete. Just waiting on a couple more things to do. Put it over to mosquito control. You'll find in your packet there's a quote for larvicide. Larvicide is what we spray ditches, and we also spray rice fields outside the city limits, right in the rice fields. the surrounding city limits. And that quote is for the larvicide chemical is $35.6607. That's tax included and delivery. We do this each year at this time.
Kind of a standard purchase. I'll take a motion to accept the purchase for larvicide.
Move to purchase the larvicide from Clark.
Okay.
Second.
Matt Cordell makes a motion, seconded by Raymond Hatton. Any questions or discussion items?
Roy Don, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So what are the times that you are coming through town and spraying at night?
We start at 8 o'clock. We we got 2 trucks that go out every night, and we start around 8 o'clock, between 8 and 8:15. And it takes anywhere from 3.5 to 4 hours to do each side.
Okay. Have you had any complaints about that with people walking and children still out and people still trying to get exercise at night and that truck is coming through?
No, ma'am. Our truck drivers are trained to turn it off when they get to see people. And, you know, me and Greg Lingo went to a mosquito vector meeting.
Went to class last
class last year. And the best time to spray is right before dark and the first 2 to 3 hours at dark to get multiple. Get the best results. So we try to watch out for all the kids and anybody having cookout or anything, we shut it down and we watch out for joggers and walkers and everything.
Okay.
Now, I want to add too, since you asked the question, to be clear, the larvicide is not what's used in town. It's an adulticide that we spray in town. The larvicide is used in our on the edge of the city where it's where mosquito eggs are grown. Essentially water, stagnant water, stuff like that. That's what the larvicide is used for. So it's you have 2 different products, a larvicide and an adulticide. And we're asking to purchase larvicide tonight. Any other questions? All right, we'll take it to a vote. Don't forget to unmute. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Ron, you got anything else for us?
I'd like to turn it over to Greg Lingo right now because I've got him. He's really taking control of this mosquito program and everything. So I'm gonna turn it over and let him tell you what he's been doing for the last couple of weeks.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Greg.
We've been trapping for approximately 2 weeks now. We've seen very little mosquito activity so far. Our numbers are relatively low. The most we've had is 4 in one trap. We're pretty much staying 0 to 1 right now. But with the rice fields being flooded, we're going to start putting out larvicide next week in the ditches and in the rice fields. So that's what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. And we take care of the trucks and we watch everything with the trucks.
Any questions for Greg? Greg, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for giving us a quick update on what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on. Rodon, you got anything else, sir?
No, sir. That'd be it.
All right, Mr. Mike Brown, you're up, sir. Community Center report.
Okay, I'll keep mine short and sweet. Really don't have any action items. We open up today to phase 2, in which we're letting kids come back is one, and we open up the locker rooms where people can change and shower. Those are the 2 big things. And other than that, Mayor, we're slowly picking up. We're probably at about 40% of what we would normally be. So once the kids start coming back, I think we're going to have a real busy summer. And that's all I've got.
Any questions for Mr. Brown?
see one just got posted there from Give. Is the pool open?
Yes.
And also, I had one. Is a 12 foot? Is that still the distance inside? Everybody's trying to maintain.
Upstairs in the fitness area is 12. Everywhere else is 6.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it, sir. All right. Public Works report, Mr. Jim Kelly, sir.
Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yeah, I got you.
All right. First off is our monthly water report. Nothing special. 16.5% water loss is the only thing notable on here. A quick update. The culvert installation at Fish Hatchery and South Center was completed. So we got all 3 of those culverts in. Got rock on it, and we're just waiting for everything to settle, go back and then asphalt that. And we're still working on some paperwork to get the culverts in at Kirk, the crossing there. So also next month, I plan on having some quotes for a new backhoe that I budgeted for. So currently I'm gonna be working on those, and hopefully I'll have something by our next meeting. I do have several items that we need to discuss. One is the phase 2 water. The bid opening was today, and we have not completed our bid tabulation yet, and we're also still vetting the references. So I think we're actually going to take action on this water phase 2 at our next meeting. But the majority of the bids that came in today were under our estimate, which is a good thing. Second would be change order number 1 for the sidewalk job. This is a reconciliatory change order. And the total amount added to the contract was $1,759.50. And the revised amount would be $344,202.52. So to be clear, I only
motion to accept change order number 1.
I move that we accept change order number 1.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I got a motion by Ms. Alice Bridges, seconded by Coy Butler. Any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
And also, we have a quote here from Harris, who did the initial construction on the sidewalk project. But this is to add an additional 195 feet of sidewalk to the job. And this is located on the west side of South Center between Pine and Academy. Runs across the Presbyterian Church there. And basically it's going to extend from Academy north to really just several feet past that house there on Academy. I don't know if you can picture, or on Center, if you can picture it or not. But the price for that was $7,410.
Again, does it go all the way to the Presbyterian Church?
Sir?
Does it go all the way to the Presbyterian Church?
Basically, yeah, there's a large tree kind of sits in between the church and the house that the church owns, and it's going to go a few feet north of that.
I make a motion that we accept that bid.
I second it.
Motion made by Coy Butler, seconded by Suzette Elmore. Any questions on the purchase of that portion of sidewalk?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Since it was not in the original grant, proposal, where will the money come from to do that work?
We should come out of a contingency it'll come out of a street department budget. But, contingency most likely is going to bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? All right, then we'll take it to a vote then for the purchase. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Jim, you got anything else for us?
Now, does anybody have any questions about current projects or anything or concerns in town? Now's your time.
Hey, Jim, this is Ryan. Can you tell us a little bit about what was included in the next phase of water sewer that was bid today and when you expect that to move forward?
It was just the water was the bid for today. I'm hoping at next council meeting you approve a bid and we can get a contractor in here pretty quickly. You know, I don't have my map in front of me right now that kind of specifies exactly what areas, which I can present that to y'all again. You'll probably have it somewhere, or because I know we've gone over it before, but at next council meeting we can run over that again also. But I should have all my numbers in and our recommendations here within this week, most likely. So next meeting, we should be ready to set bids on.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to say real quick to you, one thing about the sidewalk project is we're very pleased with how the sidewalk project's been installed and implemented. But we have not been satisfied with the finishing fringe easements, the dirt work required to shoulder the sidewalks. And I just want you guys to know that we are working extra diligent with the contractor through Jack Bond to ensure that our easements are mobile, that they move water, and that they're put back in a proper way. And so just have confidence in knowing that. If you guys have any questions, feel free to give me a call at any point in time. But if you have constituents concerned about how their easements have been left, sidewalk project specific, I'm not talking about the water sewer yet, because there's still a lot of portions of the community that haven't been cleaned up and finished with seed straw and graded yet. But sidewalk specific, we're working with the current contractor to make sure he makes a deal on that before the project's considered finalized. Okay. Do you have anything else, sir?
Nope, that's it.
All right, moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Chief Edwards. Floor is yours, sir.
Good evening. First thing is our monthly report. We've had 220 complaints or dispatch calls. That's going to be 20 less than April. We received 246 911 calls. That's 42 more than April. Moving on down, field immigration and parole, a total of 5,490 for last month. 390 of that was billed to immigration, and 5,100 is billed to probation and parole. Again, we did see a decrease in immigration holdings due to COVID-19, and we are starting to see a little bit of increase, but right now it's still low. We took a total of 64 reports for the month. Any questions on the monthly report? All right, the next item of business is the school resource officer program agreement / contract with Lonoke Public Schools. The current contract expires June 19th, and I have supplied this contract, which is the same contract that we have had in the past with Dr. Tackett, and he's actually presenting that to the school board tonight, right now as we speak. The only change in the contract was the rate of pay, and that number was just based on the potential increase in officer pay. That is subject to change, not be that, or be a little less, and we'll handle that when that comes. And I'm asking for the council, if they've read over the contract, if they've got any questions, I'll do the best I can to answer those. If not, I'm requesting the contract be approved.
I'll take a motion to accept the school resource officer contract.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Coy Butler, seconded by Michael Florence. Any discussion? Is there any questions? Okay, we'll take it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion accepted. All right, anything else you got for us, Matt?
If there's any changes, like I said, the school board is looking over this contract. If there's any changes that they want made, I will bring that before the council as soon as I can. Of course, again, our contract ends in a few days. I've got a prior engagement. Is it asking the council if it's okay if I be excused?
Not a problem, Matt.
All right, thank you. Have a great night.
You have a good night. All right, guys, moving on. Mr. Dan Salinger. I think this is the first of hopefully many community development reports that we'll start getting here. So, Mr. Dan.
Okay, I'm not sure if everybody can see me or hear me because I have difficulties with the transition between AT&T and Verizon.
We can hear you. Okay.
I'd like to start off with the houses that we've already identified that are coming up for the compensation meeting. And 3 that would consist of 318 England, 719 South Center, and 317 Harrison. All 3 have acknowledged receipt of the package that we sent to them. They have until the 22nd of this month to respond back in writing. They also have the invitation to attend the condemnation meeting. So far, I have not received any written responses back from notification process. I do have a verbal coming back from the owner on 318 England. They are aware of it and that they are anxious to try and get it done. However, they probably have a monetary problem that they'll bring up at that time at the meeting. Identified another 7 houses that for whatever reason I'm going to put on the front burner. There's a lot more out there, but here's the ones that I'm concerned with as potential safety problems. 304 Ash, the front of the house has been destroyed. I believe it was a tree during a storm that got uprooted. I've spoken directly with the owner. I'm going to do a follow-up this week because it has been 1 week and I haven't seen any action. 315 McKinley, this is a good one. It was in very poor condition. I spoke directly with the owner because I did tag that house as being unsafe. If you pass by the house today, it's not perfect, but it is considerably better. The grass is no longer waist high. It has been cut down. They still have to move the trailer and do some routing and a little bit more securement, but it's at least going to be where it's going to be sellable and productive on that aspect. I expect it will probably sell quickly. On 512 Pleasant, I'm sorry, I misspoke. 315 McKinley is a different one. I meant to call it as 512 Pleasant. That's made the significant progress. 315 McKinley is the one that burned back in January that was left in utter chaos. We were able to get the insurance company to come out and board up the windows and the doors and prevent the children from having access to that house. I'm going to kind of come back to that one in just a few moments. 620 Cedar is a new one that we've identified. The hole in the roof and it has not been touched in what looks to be years. I have spoken directly twice with the owner, and when I spoke to her again this morning, she assured me she was going to be sending someone out to take a look at it and at least get the grass cut down to an acceptable level. 1209 Oakdale, which was about 2.5 years ago that it burned down, was left in a pile in a heap, and it needs to be eradicated. The weeds are also waist high. Apparently there was something in the past where they stopped the productivity on it. I have sent registered letters out to the owner, have not heard back yet at this time. And then the other one I haven't heard back on is on 202 Adams, which is the condemnation list, but it's going to need some attention. The bushes are up over the top of the roof. You actually can't see the house from the street side unless you go down the side. And that's also waiting for somebody to acknowledge receipt of the registered letter we sent. I moved back towards 315 McKinley and 516 Jefferson. Now, 516 Jefferson is a historic house in the middle of the historic district for this town. It's got weeds that are just about waist high again. It's a very large lot. It's a very nice house. The owners went bankrupt. Their business failed, and it brought down their house because they had invested a lot of their money from the house into their business. Talked with Ginger, and we're moving forward, and looks as though we're going to be able to go out for doing some of the remediation on the lawn and the area, and try to get that picked up on a punitive aspect for filing a lien. And also it's going to apply to 315 McKinley. That's the one that burned back in January of this year. McKinley, we were able to get it boarded up. We're still trying to get the weeds and the grass cut down. It's really in bad shape. And we've got a plan that we're going to try to implement in the next few days to try to get both of these houses to an acceptable level. But I really, even as bad as McKinley is, I think that 516 Jefferson probably stands up to be first because of the historic nature and the type of house that it is. Have any questions?
I have a question or comment about the property surrounding the Mallard Point neighborhood. That grass has not been mowed in over a month. I think we need to issue a citation out there.
Okay, I have not actually been out to the Mallard Point. I've been kind of focusing on the inside, but I can take that ride tomorrow, and I'll have to find who the owner on that is, but we can certainly do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Dan, I have a question.
Yes.
I know that there is a green trailer, house trailer, between Court and Center Street on the alleyway. And I know in the past they had been sent letters concerning condemnation. Is that on your list? And if so, can you give us an update on that?
It's not on my list. I'm not aware of it just at this point. However, I'll take a ride out tomorrow and see what the status on that is. You said that was between Court and Center. About what 100 block is that?
It's the alleyway between the probation offices and like Emily's Florist. It's a block from the city, the mayor's office. But it's a green trailer that has been vacant for years. It's in deterioration. From what I understand, some other individuals with concern cut down some trees around it. And there were also snakes that were under the trailer that were discovered. So it's right off of Court where the funeral home is. And you could consider it almost behind Tommy's Donuts in that area right there in the alleyway.
I'll have to make that drive tomorrow, so I'll see what I can find.
Okay.
And have something for you guys on next month's meeting unless you need something sooner.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other
Anyone
questions?
else?
All right, Dan, well done. I really appreciate it. All right, we're gonna move on. Last report is Chief Wittenberg.
Good evening. In front of you, you should have my monthly report. We had 15 EMS calls, 17 fire-related calls, total of 32. We spent 13 hours and 24 minutes on scene. An average of 4.19 personnel on those calls. Any questions over that? The other thing I have, last time we had the ice machine approved, we had a little hiccup in the bidding process. So I reached out and rebid the whole process. You should have the 3 bids in front of you. I'd like to move on that tonight.
Right, so I'll entertain a motion to accept quote to replace the ice machine at the fire department.
I'll make that motion, Raymond.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, motion made by Raymond Hatton, seconded by Suzette Elmore. Any questions or discussion items for Chief?
Don't we need to specify which bid we're accepting?
Thank you, Alice.
The Superior Ice, the lowest bid?
Yes.
I reached out to the owner of Superior Ice, and the reason that's crossed out on the $100 is if we didn't allow him to haul the machine off, he's giving us $100 credit. So that $3,280.14 would be the price if he hauls the equipment off, and we've already took it off the fixed asset list.
All right, sorry, Justin. Sorry, council. So let me cover my tracks here. I'll entertain a motion to accept the bid from Superior Ice to replace the ice machine. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion is made. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Motion is made by Raymond Hatton and seconded by Suzette Elmore to accept Superior Ice quote. Any questions or further discussion items? Thank you, Ms. Alice.
Mr. Mayor, this is Ryan. Just a couple of questions. This is a taxable item. Some of the quotes have tax and some do not.
I specified in the bid sheets that we were tax exempt, and some of them put tax on it anyway.
Okay. And does this item require a license for installation?
I would
And
believe so.
have those been
So
confirmed? I'm sorry.
I said I would think so.
Yeah, I'm sure that it does. It requires refrigeration. It's all in, it's plumbing and electrical. So yes, I would assume it does.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure those have been, if they were required, that they'd been checked and verified, that the licenses are current and qualified.
Yes, Ryan, I appreciate you asking that question. They have been, hence the reason for the relapse, because we went through this, I guess, last council and had some setback in that process. But yes, all the boxes have been checked and all the quotes are validated.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? All right, we're going to take it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right, guys, I appreciate all the reports. Moving in to old business. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the cable franchise collection update simply because we just don't have a lot of information from Mr. Tim McGraw. You guys remember we entered into a contract with local government services in Zlotowka, Georgia to audit our cable franchise fees, revenue collections, essentially. And Mr. Tim McGraw is the guy on our case. And last I got, he's waiting on a comprehensive response from Cable South. There's some good news, bad news, but I kind of gave you guys one of the last updates I received from him on that. And so if you guys have any questions, I would ask that you contact me outside or Regina as well, outside of the city council. And then hopefully by next city council, we'll have some movement on where we stand with that. All right. Last city council, we discussed a company called HomeServe. Miss Emily Zalfini is with us here tonight. She couldn't make it in person, which is just fitting because we're not in person either. So Miss Zalfini, appreciate you being able to make it here tonight. So we gave the council the information on what HomeServe does. And essentially they bridge a gap between city infrastructure and the resident itself. And they provide an opportunity for insurance coverage on sewer and water in between that gray area. All right. And so you guys have the information in your packet. And what I'm going to do is ask for a motion to approve the contractual agreement between the City of Lonoke and HomeServe. And Miss Emily's here to answer any questions that we have.
Make a motion to proceed with it.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Michael Florence, seconded by Raymond Hatton. Are there any discussion items on it? Are there any questions? Very well. Well, then I'm going to take it to a vote. Don't forget to unmute. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, all opposed? All right, unanimous. Motion carries. All right, that is going to be a good thing for our community, I do believe. All right, on to new business. You have in your packet the water department write-off list, a standard procedure that we go through every year. So I will entertain a motion to approve the list.
Motion so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Raymond Hatton, seconded by Ephraim Jones. Any questions?
Is this the past due list that we're looking at now? The write-off, is that what is going to be written off?
That's correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Philip, wasn't it something, I was a little confused. We did this last time. Isn't this something just to get the book straight, and a lot of this will still be collected, most likely?
That's right. Some of it can be collected. You know, we're part of a service where if someone tries to get water sewers somewhere else, we're contacted, and these other cities won't connect them until we're paid. So, and sometimes people do come back and pay for one reason or another. But yes, there's a chance we could collect some of this, but not likely that a large amount of it will be collected.
Why are some of the dates going all the way back to 18 if they've been written off before?
I can't answer that. Regina, can you answer that?
They only do it once a year, and they usually wait and do it right before the auditors come and audit the previous year, and they forgot to do it this year. So that's why this one is behind.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Got a motion and a second. If there's no further questions or discussions, then we'll take it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Let me ask again. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next item on the agenda is a selection of an ESCO. Mr. Gib Richardson's here to give us a brief narrative. But first, I want to take us back to about this time last year when we actually spring of last year, we had a few energy companies come into City Hall. And let me update this slide here. Sorry, guys. Falling back on my duties to get this slide updated. I said, hey, we'd like to pitch the city on what it is that we do, and we try to help you guys lower your energy bills. And I said, you don't need to preach to the choir, because I believe that we have a responsibility to be good stewards of our resources. And we set up 2 different working sessions throughout the middle and fall portions of last year for the city council, so we could educate ourselves on what energy service performance contracts were, what an energy service company, what an ESCO actually is, and if this is something that would be right for the city of Lonoke. And we believe that it is, which is why a few councils back, we decided to collectively to enter into a contract, or to release an RFQ so that we could enter into a contract with an energy service company. And so, big picture, small, we're going to work with a company to come into Lonoke and look at our energy consumption rates, look at the energy practices that we have, and essentially lower our overhead through clean energy practices, through LED lights, potentially HVAC equipment, window sills, everything that they do. And tonight, what we're going to essentially vote on is to enter into contract with a company so that we can get into that first phase, which is the IGA, and that's the investment grade audit, so that they can come in and actually show us where we can make rooms for improvement, and potentially design a project after that second phase to offset our remaining costs. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gib Richardson, because Gib is the head, he's the chair of the 2022 Infrastructure Committee, and they have been charged to vet the applications that came in prior months. And so, Gib, if you would just talk to us real quickly, please, sir, about who you are, what you did for us, and what that process, that vetting process looked like, and
Sure.
why we actually are choosing who we are tonight.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council and staff. Again, my name is Gib Richardson, and I am the contracting officer for the engineering directorate for the Arkansas National Guard. So I have a little bit, I have some experience reviewing RFQs and RFPs, and that's why the mayor asked me to facilitate this process. So he asked me in April to put together a process to vet the 5 proposals that we got in response to our RFP. And so I gathered the infrastructure team via Zoom, and we decided that we would do this with a selection committee of 3 people, that 3 voting members. I would be a non-voting facilitator to facilitate the process. And we also had the assistance of Mr. Chet Howland from the Arkansas Energy Office as a subject matter expert and a third-party advisor. And he will continue with us through this whole process. So I had 3 volunteers to serve on the committee, and Mr. Philip Howell, Mr. Bob Pack, and Mr. Jim Bailey. They reviewed all the proposals independently and objectively. That was important for the process, that they independently and objectively review the written proposal and then score them based off the criteria spelled out in our proposal, our request for proposal. And so they scored them, they sent them to me, I averaged them. We had another meeting, and then we discussed our scores, or their scores, to make sure there were no anomalies where someone, scored one person really high in one area and someone else scored them really low in the other area. We would discuss and work that out to make sure someone didn't miss something. So anyway, we scored them, and we selected the top 2 to be our shortlist for an interview, a personal interview. And we conducted that interview and at City Hall, and actually in the courtroom, exercising social distancing. And I'll tell you, that evening, both of those companies really brought their A game. Both companies, the companies were McKinstry and Performance Service Incorporated. Either of those companies could have done exactly what we want them to do. But our committee was kind of charged with finding the best of the 5, and not only just the best of the 5, but the best fit for Lone Oak. So after interviewing them, we discussed that some more. We went back and forth about how they were both really good, to the point that we couldn't decide. The committee could not make a decision that evening. It was coming down to a coin toss. So rather than doing that, we did some more due diligence, and they went back and contacted some more references. References not that the firms had recommended in their proposal. These are references that were given to us by Mr. Howland from the Arkansas Energy Office, more of a third-party, unbiased reference that so the committee contacted. And then we met back after the weekend, and after they'd contacted those references, shared what they learned from that discussion, and it was a unanimous decision of the 3 voting members to select McKinstry as our ESCO. And so the Infrastructure Committee of Lone Oak 2022 recommends that the city go into contract with McKinstry for energy performance contracting.
And with that, thank you, Gib. I will entertain a motion to accept the contract.
So moved.
Thanks, Gib, and so moved.
Okay, so I've got a motion made by Suzette Elmore. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, I heard a motion made by Ms. Elmore and seconded by Coy Butler is what I heard. Is there any discussion items or any questions?
Hey, Gib, this is Ryan. I just have one question about, do you have the contract in front of you by any chance?
I don't. I know the mayor's been working on it with Mr. Holstead from McKinstry. I've taken a look at it.
No problem. This is just it's an easy one. Page 3. I say it's an easy one. I'm having trouble verifying. It talks about the owner's obligation for payment, and essentially, if it's if the IGA verifies that savings will not be sufficient to fund the payments of all costs and fees associated with it, then essentially even the fee for the audit, the city is not obligated if the savings will not pay for that fee. Is that accurate, or am I misreading that? And if you don't know, it's okay. That seems like a good deal for the city. So I just am making sure that that's the case.
I can't say if it is or not. I'm sorry.
Actually, Jay's what
That's my understanding of it.
Okay, thank you, Ginger.
Jay is here with us tonight. Mr. Holstead, if you want to weigh in on that, feel free to.
Folks, I was trying to stay off in the background, but I hope y'all can hear me okay. My name is Jay Holstead. I'm with McKinstry, and that is exactly right, Ryan. So basically, and I've explained this to the mayor and to others before, there's 3 things that could happen through this IGA process. Number 1, we identify a project. It's financially viable. Everything looks, golden. We've got the design. We want to move forward. And for some reason, the city decides, well, we're not going to pursue that project at this time, but thank you for the report. Then there would be a fee due to us as an ESCO. And again, fully sanctioned through the energy office. And I believe there's also costs associated for their third-party engineering review and financial reviews as well, but it's all included. For the second option, let's say we get to that point and the city says, yes, this is a viable project. We want to move forward. We see the value in it. We're going to save all this money over 20 years. Boom, let's go. Then the cost of this audit is it's enveloped into the project contract. It gets financed into the project. So once again, the city's not cutting a check in that scenario. Never, doesn't have to pay upfront for those fees. The third option, and we don't believe this is the case because we wouldn't be here today if we didn't perceive this to be a viable opportunity for all. But that third option would be we get engaged, we get into the IGA process and determine, there's really not a project here. If that was to occur and we were to terminate the contract, the city owes nothing. We absorb that, we accept that risk. And ultimately, that's what this is really about, is we as an ESCO, McKinstry, is here to accept those risks and on behalf of the city to put together the right project with the value and the guaranteed savings. That's the key. It is guaranteed that the cost of this project will be paid for out of the savings annually.
Any other questions?
Well, another piece of the project would, besides the energy reduction measures, it would be energy production, potential solar field or solar array.
That's part of this IGA. Yes, Skip, you're right. We will investigate, design, develop that project through this IGA process or phase. And at the end of that process, basically we come back with kind of the turnkey project, the package with all of the cost and its production and its reduction in energy. It's the total package at the end of the IGA.
And one more thing to point out is the entire first year of the project, we don't make any payment because it's during that year that we are actually saving money to make the first payment at the end of the first year. Correct, Jay?
Well, again, yes. So this is what they call guaranteed savings, performance contract. And again, going to the state energy office, and even if we weren't, we would guarantee these savings are going to be there as a company. So whatever's rolled into the finance of this project, and it goes all the way out 20 years, and we do all the terms and everything, but the savings that you garner from the energy reduction and or the solar production is what's paying for the project. And so if, let's just say, hypothetically, we get to the end of the year and we said it was going to be $50,000 in savings annually to the city through these energy upgrades. Well, of course, at the end of the year, we've just now installed the project. So you really have The first year is what they call measurement. Well, every year is, but it's a measurement and verification process where we, a performance period, looking at the bills, making sure that the meters are turning the right direction and you're getting the money back in your pocket or back into the budget. Well, those dollars are guaranteed to be there. If for any reason we said you're going to save $50,000 and only 40,000 was saved, we as the ESCO, again, assuming the risk, we write a check for the $10,000 difference. We make it whole. We're going to make good on this. Now, on the reverse side, in a hypothetical, let's say we promised 50,000, but you saved 60,000. Well, that's good on y'all. That's extra money. We don't share in those savings. Again, the 50,000 is paying down the debt service. The other 10 that you made in that hypothetical, that all goes to the city as just pure revenue, if you will.
Thank you, Jay.
Receive, I guess, more of like a recapturing revenue. Yep. Okay.
All right. Good job, Jay. Thanks for the explanation. Are there any other questions?
I have one question. So there is no cost up front to the city?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct. Again,
Okay,
with the only exception of if we do all the development work through this IGA process for the next, it's a 90-day, up to 90 days, 3 months to do the design development and get all the finance, the terms and everything laid out for the project. If at that time, when the report's delivered, the city decides not to move forward, that would be the only time that the city would owe for that effort. But otherwise, you move forward with the project, there is no direct bill. We don't bill for it. It gets rolled into the cost of the project and paid for through the savings.
Okay, so if we backed out, the fee would be that $28,990?
Yes, ma'am. I'll yes, ma'am. And I'll tell you this, we're going to spend a lot more than that. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, but that's the truth. Because we're not doing this project to get an IGA contract. We're doing this to help the city improve its situation for many years to come. And like the mayor said, be better stewards of resources in the environment and to help y'all put more money back into other things rather than to the utility companies, to be honest.
This is a long-term investment for our community, Alice.
Yes, I just was wondering about that total cost. But he answered the question, so thank you.
Anything else, guys?
Hey, it's Michael. I just want to thank Gibb and his team for taking care of that and vetting all the companies.
It's my privilege.
All right.
Yeah, I echo that, Michael. Thanks, Gibb.
If there's nothing else, guys, we'll take it to a vote.
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. All right. Thanks again, Gibb. Good job tonight, both you and Jay. I appreciate the explanations. All right, last on the list, guys, of new business is Resolution 6/1/2020, titled Lone Oak is Essential. I'm going to give you a quick, brief background. This is COVID-driven and municipal league influenced. And we are one of many municipalities across the state to show an interest in ensuring federal aid money makes its way through the state level down to our level. And that's essentially what this is, a resolution stating our interest to recoup federal funds that would help us offset COVID losses, right? There's 3 or 4 different pieces of legislation currently, one of which is called the Flex Act, if you haven't heard about it. And all of these are designed essentially to channel and funnel federal aid down to the lowest level, which is us. And I had a conversation with the Municipal League this afternoon with just to kind of discuss this. And I hope you've had a chance to read through that resolution. This doesn't guarantee, this is simply a show of solidarity from the community that we anticipate and are asking that federal aid makes its way all the way down to the lowest level so that we can help recoup and offset revenue loss that we anticipate. Little things like closing down the community center or loss in A&P taxes or air filter purchases. Okay, so that's what this is about. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to put resolution 6/1/2020 on the floor.
I make a motion that we put 6/1/2020 on.
Second.
Motion is made by Raymond Hatton, seconded by Coy Butler. Ginger?
Resolution number 6-1-2020, the city of Lone Oak is essential in support of fair, direct federal emergency support to reopen and rebuild local American economies. Whereas America's cities, towns, and villages face unprecedented threats due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic emergency. And whereas municipalities are essential to America's economic recovery, and without funding support for local governments, municipalities may go from being a critical part of the economic solution to becoming a major obstacle to long-term stabilization and recovery. And whereas America's cities, towns, and villages will experience budgetary shortfalls in fiscal year 2020 alone, and the negative effects of the pandemic emergency on local communities will continue long after this year. And whereas 3 million critical municipal worker jobs are at risk, threatening cuts to basic community services, including 911 response, sanitation, and maintenance. And whereas communities have taken extraordinary measures to protect health, safety, and the continuation of essential services throughout the emergency. And whereas the city of Lone Oak has responded to the federal emergency by keeping the citizens up to date across all social media platforms, establishing a community notice board, meaning a COVID hotline, purchasing PPE across all departments to keep our employees safe, and making budgetary sacrifices through the loss of revenue by closure of the community center, many local restaurants, and postponement of all spring and summer sports through the Parks and Recreation Department. And whereas America's rural communities and small towns are struggling just as much as big cities and risk being left behind or wiped out entirely. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the city that the city of Lone Oak calls on Congress to allocate fair and direct federal support to all of America's communities, regardless of population size. And be it further resolved that this funding must be flexible and address not only the additional expenses incurred by communities to respond to the pandemic emergency, but also the dramatic budgetary shortfalls resulting from pauses in commerce, tourism, and other economic engines. And be it further resolved that local governments will ensure federal funds are immediately used to rebuild and reopen the national economy. And be it further resolved that funding will keep middle-class workers employed and critical services operating. And either I'm missing a line or there's something missing on the end of that. Or there needs to be a period at the end of that.
Regina, do you have it in front of you?
There's another
sheet.
sentence.
One more sheet.
I don't have one more sheet.
There's one more. Be it further resolved that the city of Lone Oak has been part of the emergency response and now calls on Congress to build a united national partnership for a safe, healthy, and prosperous life.
Thank you.
Well done. All right, I'll take a motion to accept resolution 6/1/2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by Coy Butler, seconded by Raymond Hatton. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right, guys, appreciate your time tonight. We're at an hour and a half. I've got just a few brief announcements that I want to make. Let's do that after I actually take a motion to approve the bills.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? That motion carries. All right. Just for your knowledge and edification, we are working on a plan for a 4th of July drive-in fireworks show. If everything gets lined up and we can check the boxes in the next week between the Ministerial Alliance, Chief Wittenberg, and myself, hopefully we'll have a nice 6 to 10 minute fireworks show that we can enjoy. The plan right now is to host it over at the Gunabo project or the property and shoot the fireworks from there. Hopefully you'll be able to see them from downtown or park over by the park or the post office or anywhere around that portion of downtown and be able to experience a nice fireworks show. We also have a transmitter that we're hoping to use so that we can play music during the show and you can tune into a low frequency radio station. Next, City Council will be asking you guys to entertain a release to put out for bid a new trash services contract. So we've discussed this not at length, but please start thinking of things that you would like to consider as we draft that bid request for consideration. I spoke with Will at Thrive today, and he currently has our homepage and the internal structure of our website set up. He's still working on it, and he's actually still procuring local photography throughout the community to be used. So if you or anybody you know has photographs that you don't mind to let the city use, then you can send us that photograph or video as you wish, and it may or may not be considered to be put up on the website. I want to hit COVID real quickly. Right there in phase 2, and I talked with the emergency management officer today for Lonoke County. There are no current cases of COVID in the city of Lonoke. There are 8 cases in the county. Now, you guys, I know, are maintaining awareness of the spike that we're seeing. Okay, and to add some context to that spike, a large portion of that is contributed to a movement of migrant workers moving in and working in just 2 counties of the state for Tyson. And so that's what he had to add to that. And so it might seem like, you know, we've got to maintain vigilance. We've got to still put in good preventative measures. But in terms of what we're seeing here in our community, it would appear that all is well. And so I'd ask you to just keep encouraging others to maintain their distance and be considerate, especially of children and immunocompromised folks. But that spike that we're seeing that might be driving some fear throughout the community, it is somewhat isolated to a few counties in Arkansas, Lonoke of which is not one of them. Next City Council, I hope to have a product for your consideration, and really fingers crossed we're going to be able to meet in the courtroom. But if we're not, then I'll have a hopefully a printed Mississippi State Connecting Lonoke report ready for you. I think it, Ryan, you can back me up. There's about 65, 70 pages that we have re-edited and run through and help them correct some errors, send it back. They're going to fix it and give us a very, very nice finished product to be used for future projects and conceptual design. That is all I had for announcements. If anybody else real briefly has something they'd like to say, feel free to. All right, then. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. You guys have a good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.